Good evening, Safe Space family. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We are here tonight with Minister Almesha Warren. She is a long-term member of my church, and I've known her for a very long time. But God has his time. We're getting to know each other better recently, and it is a delight to know you better and see your personality. I've enjoyed every moment of it.
Awesome.
But we're going to get really straight into who and what she is. I'm going to go back. I'm going to do this. For those of you that have never seen Safe Space, Safe Space is a place of directing you to and making you aware that there's always, always hope in the Lord. No matter what you're doing, where you come from, what you're experiencing now. That's why I tell or make sure that I cover such a vast array of stories. At least that is my intent, to let you know, no matter whether you have experienced a horrendous death in your family through murder, or whether you struggle with debilitating anxiety, or you've struggled with a drug addiction for a very long period of time. All of these subject matters have been covered on Safe Space. Whether you struggled with illness or debilitating strokes or aneurysms, it doesn't matter what it is. There is always hope in God if you just give him a chance. I know some people may not come from a background that teaches you about religion or a relationship with God. For me, those are two different things, even though they marry for me in my life. But if you have to start somewhere, start with just talking to him, just like I'm talking to you now. If you spend time and still away in a quiet place, I promise you will connect. It's impossible not to connect because he's just that faithful, kind, loving, and good. Give him a try. So, Minister Almesha Warren has been married to her lovely husband, Deacon Warren is what I call him, for over 31 years. She has 3 beautiful children. Yes. And then we're going to get into all of the things that she's accomplished and she does since she surrendered her life to Christ in 1995.
Yes.
In 2012, she began Gospel Talk, which is a gospel publication, a magazine. In 2013, you did your Gospel Talk Live. In 2016, you began your Transformation Women's Conference, which I had the pleasure last month of attending in Valdosta. I'm getting chills. It was such a blessing. I mean, it was transformative. It was such a blessing. Also, she's a 2-time author. The most recent book I just finished, it's called Becoming What You're Carrying. And for me, that is a mouthful, because the word of God tells us we are born with everything that we need for our life's journey from day one.
Yes.
The first book, correct me if I'm wrong, was a devotional.
Yes.
And correct. You did that in 2020.
Yes.
And it was called Coming Out of the Wilderness.
That's correct.
She is a certified life coach and a licensed minister, which all happened for you in 2023.
That's correct.
Now, I know you don't remember all that I said, because it is quite a resume. So we're going to begin with your personal life and what you'd like to share about that, about your journey into starting Gospel Talk and you surrendering your life to God in 1995, and how it's led you to develop all these things. This is no joke. This lady sent me a bio, but there's a link that she has that lists a podcast, a blog. I didn't even talk about those things, but we're going to leave it to her to highlight the things that she'd like, or the Holy Spirit puts upon her to, because this is not scripted, to share with you tonight, because we know this will be ordered to whomever's out there that is going to receive it and needs it. So have your way. We can talk about your book, because those chapters in that book are so interesting. Chapter 1, the initial encounter. And this book parallels, she takes such an interesting perspective. It is on Amazon. I'm gonna let her tell you guys how to get it and how to reach her and all of that. But I have to say this, it parallels the encounter with Jesus Christ and the Samaritan woman at the well. And there are 10 chapters, and they're titled like The Gift from God, Attitude, what your attitude. The 3rd chapter is submission. And what she said, my highlight, and I remember it here in my notes, was that submission equates to the attitude that we have when we have encounters with Jesus. But I'm going to hush my mouth and let you take it away, because this is your resume. And what a work of God, and what a work of a resume that it is for God, I should say, for the kingdom, the kingdom. So, Minister Warren.
And foremost, thank you so much for inviting me into Safe Space.
Absolutely.
And I want to say congratulations to you. 2 years.
Thank you.
2 years.
If you knew my story, but this is not the night for that, you clap again.
Yeah. 2 years. So that is an accomplishment, because people really don't know when God tugs on you. He says, I have an assignment for you. How much faith that requires, how you have to fight the internal.
Oh, yes.
To move forward, and how you have to overcome the thoughts that say you're not this, you're not that. How can you think you're going to accomplish this? So I celebrate you.
Thank you.
For the 2 years.
Thank you.
But about Almesha, like it was mentioned, I am married to Deacon Rod Warren. We have been married for 31 years. We have 3 amazing, different personality, crazy, wild kids. Our oldest, Alexandria, is in San Jose, California. Our middle is Rodney Jr. He's actually in Hoover, which most people probably don't know. Birmingham. So I was going to say Birmingham, Alabama. And our youngest one, Alicia, who's recently graduated. And so we have these children. When God woke me up, this was in 2010. At the time, my husband had surgery, so he was home. He wasn't working, and God wakes me up. It literally felt like he breathed on me. He just said, "Phew," wow. And I woke up. Never had any experience like that before. And when he woke me up, I went and grabbed a piece of paper and I began to write down the vision that God had given me. In this vision, it said, he gave me the name, because people will ask me, where did you get the name from? I said, I didn't. He gave it to me.
I understand.
He gave it to me. What is to be in the magazine? And I took all of these notes. And then when my husband woke up, I showed it to him. He said, what is it? I said, it's a magazine. That was the start. But because I had the fear, I had to overcome the fear. I had to overcome, I had to build my self-confidence. Yes. I had to overcome all of the things that I was not, yes, to do what he had called me to do.
Yes.
And I remember going to a Methodist church. At this point, I used to work in Alpharetta. And one of my coworkers said, we got to go see this pastor. It's Methodist, but he's so good. And I said, okay, let's go. The word is the word. And we went, and we were going. And then one Wednesday, he stops in the middle of his message and he says, is somebody in here, God has given you an assignment, and you think I don't have the education or the money to do it? Shelby, I cried like a baby. I just began to weep, because that was me. All the wrong that I had done, why would you want me?
Right. The condemnation, the trick.
Why would you want
trying to
me?
Keep you, Moses.
Okay. Why would you want me? I was like, no, this cannot be. I've done too much. And I just cried and I cried and I cried. And for me, that was the moment when I got my book. I got a notebook and I just began to write in it. He would wake me up sometimes in the middle of the night and I would just begin to write. I had to write the vision down.
Right.
I had to write the vision down.
He gave it to you.
Because he gave it to me. You and I talked yesterday.
Right.
I didn't have that pick me spirit. I didn't say, pick me. No.
You said it in your book.
Yeah. I said, I did not have that. I wasn't asking God for anything. The only thing that I was doing was drawing closer to God. The only thing that I was doing was spending more time in prayer. I was studying the word and not just reading the word. So this had nothing to do with me, but God knew what I was carrying. Because you mentioned it. Everything that I needed to do the work that he called me to do, it was already in me.
But you drew near to him. You were seeking him. So he knew he could trust you to reveal his plan.
Yes.
Because that was one of the things that I connected with. That's what's so wonderful about your podcast, Faith Infusion. You say at the beginning of every message, it is to encourage.
Yes.
And let people know that no matter what, and that's another thing that married me to your message when I first saw the first vitamin, because that's what he said to me with safe space. I want this to be a safe space for people to understand that you can be naked and unashamed. I am not in a position to judge anyone. And that's why it's so wonderful that books like this and your podcast, as well as this one, exists, because condemnation is a trick of the enemy.
Yes, it is.
And I remember residing in it. I shared with you yesterday in my 20s. Well, God doesn't want me. I've done this and I did this and I'm this and I'm not this. And that's all a lie.
All a lie. All a lie. And when we talk about the book, I started writing the book about 2 years ago. Every time I sat down, it would not flow. I felt like I was trying to make it happen.
Right.
But I love the story because it reminds me of me.
How many of us? And that's what's so wonderful about your chapters. You have to get the book. She takes, as I said, titles like The Initial Encounter, like Submission, things that we all encounter in our lives on a day-to-day basis and all types of situations. And she parallels it to the experience, just that exchange with Jesus and the Samaritan woman. One, the cultural difference of Jews and Samaritans.
Absolutely. That was important to tell that story.
Extremely. And she parallels it not only to what happened in that exchange, and that she's the most unlikely woman because she had 5 husbands and because she was ostracized by her own people to tell people about Jesus Christ. But when it was all over, she was who he used. Because he decides, and his life and death makes us worthy. Not anything that we can do with our deeds. And that's what everybody needs to know.
And we and I talked about this yesterday, because it says in there, he said he need go to Samaria.
That's right.
So it doesn't matter where he has to go to get you.
He'll come. Your daddy will come and get you.
Your daddy will come and get you. Whether you're on the corner, you could be in corporate America, and he says, no, I have something greater for you.
That's right.
Wherever you are, whatever you've done, God says, I don't care anything about that, because once you get this living water, you won't go back to those things.
And you'll never thirst.
You will never thirst. You will never thirst for the things that you long for, the things that you thought you needed.
That's right.
You won't, because you now have been connected to the true vine. You have experienced. That's one of the things that my oldest daughter would say to me. Mama, I know you raised us in the church, but I have to have my own experience with God.
She does.
And the woman at the well has her own experience with God. And when he reveals himself to her, she goes through the stages that I talk about in the book. Well, you have to submit. You have to have that transformation.
That's right.
You have to understand that this is God that's calling you. You have to understand the gift that's in you. You have to understand that living water that's in you, nothing, when God begins to stir that water in you, nothing will prevent it from coming up. Everything that tried to hinder, it will be moved out of the way. He'll move it out of the way. Your doubts, your fears, he'll move them out of the way. Nobody could, oh my goodness, out of 12 years of doing gospel talk, Shelby, I'll probably say for the first 5 years, I spent most of my time just crying about it. I was in my prayer closet one morning. I got in my car, my phone rings. It's 7, 6 something in the morning. I said, who's calling me this early? It's my best friend. She said, God wanted me to tell you something. And I was like, I said, okay. He says, the promise that I made to you, I haven't forgotten about it.
Did you shout in the car?
I said, "Woo, glory to God."
And that's so wonderful. And that's his nature. When you least expect it, and when you're at your wit's end, he will send you a message.
Yes, he will.
He'll send it through a person. He'll send it through a sign. He'll send it through something you read. He will send you a message, and you will know without the shadow of a doubt that he's speaking directly to you. You know what's so wonderful, Minister Almesha, is I'm getting goosebumps listening to you talk about what you're saying, because it is so what I connect with and understand. And maybe that's why I'm so excited about your message. Your message is very exciting to me because it's universal.
Yes.
It's universal to all people in all situations. I don't care what the situation is. And see, I think it's so exciting to me because I personally got caught in the trap of thinking you're not worthy. You can't do this.
Yes.
The fear.
Who do you think you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see you.
Right.
Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. Not even God. When I was in the midst of the deep, deep condemnation in my 20s, that he don't want to hear from you. You don't, and some, I was thinking after the fact, until you seek him and spend more time with him, it's not something, as your daughter said, that was very wise, that you can really explain or even understand.
That's good. You cannot understand it, because once you have shared with that experience with God, nobody can take that away. Nothing can. The question is asked: what can separate you from the love of God?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing, because you've had that experience. You've had that experience when he's shown up. He's giving you a word, the word that you needed. When you showed up when you were in lack, and he had a neighbor to come to your house and say, "Oh, glory." Nothing. When you're going through a sickness and he says, this is not unto death.
8 years with Crohn's.
Glory
I've been walking
to
in
God.
my healing for since 2004.
Glory
and
to
for
God.
6 years, I didn't have a diagnosis. Just sick, young. It started at 27. And for 6 years, I didn't know what was wrong with me. Just in and out of the hospital, in and out of doctor, dropping weight. And Crohn's, for those that are not aware of what it is, it's an autoimmune disease, and your body's basically attacking itself. But it's very nasty and painful, and it causes a lot of symptoms that are not really well known about the disease. There's some symptoms that are common that people know, but my joints would even ache me from all of the inflammation in my body. There's been times it hurt me to turn my neck, or that I walked with a limp because my hip was inflamed. I mean, it affected every aspect of my life, but I kept pushing. And when I finally found out what it is, I was on an intravenous medication for 2 years in an outpatient chemotherapy lab, whereas the drug was given to me for 4 hours at a time every 2 months. But it could have given me leukemia, was one of the side effects, outside of the respiratory and the immediate side effects, because they had to give me the pre-meds to prevent that for me to be able to take the medicine. But God sent me my healing through herbal therapy, and I have been healed since 2004. So he's able.
He's able to
He's
do
a
it.
protector. He's a provider. He's a healer. He's a peace bringer, a mind regulator.
Yes.
You know, we've been through seasons, I have in my life, where I really could have lost my mind.
Woo! My goodness. Oh, when you talk about that, I'm not going to cry. There has been so many times in my life when I know it was the peace of God. I moved into a house that I pushed my way in. God was saying, it's not time.
No, and you kept on.
And I kept on. I kept on, Shelby. No, this is my house. I was so walking around decreeing and declaring, this is my house. God was saying, no, no, it's not time. It's not. That first night in my house, I was laying in my jacuzzi tub because it was a beautiful house. And I started crying.
Really?
And I said, what have I done?
Really? The first night?
The first night. And my husband can testify to me. The first night, And I said, Lord, what have I done? I started having panic attacks because everything that was just coming at me, whoom, 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 it wasn't time. It wasn't time. And this is how I've learned not to get in front of God.
Amen.
This is why I knew I could, if he wasn't with me, I couldn't write that second book.
Right.
As much as I wanted to write it 2 years ago,
It wasn't time.
it wasn't time. I've learned obedience
It's better.
is better than sacrifice. I've learned that. So you mentioned about the transformation conference.
Oh gosh.
I want to talk about the transformation conference. The women that minister with me, the two, it has gone through some transformation. So the first group of women was Pastor Tawana Grant, and the prophetess was Sandy Johnson at the time. And we would do tapings, and they would say, Nisha, I think you need to do a conference. But because what I've experienced, I said, no, I have to wait on God to tell me to do it. So when he said do it, I said, okay. We did it. We started in the fellowship hall of this church.
Really?
Yes.
In 2016?
Yes.
Wow.
We started in the fellowship hall of this church, the first transformation conference. And you see, God has grown.
Oh gosh.
And
it
build
was
us and
lovely.
And develop it. But one thing that has always been a part of what the transformation is always inspiration and information. So I've always had a wellness person from 2016
until
now to be because I think it's so important for women to know. Our base scripture is 3 John 1 and 2. Beloved, I wish above all things that you prosper, you be in health, even as your soul prospers. I want women to know you can be on fire for God, but God also wants us to be whole.
Rest.
Self-care. We have to learn how to take care of ourselves.
And we don't do that well so often. We put ourselves last. And I've been guilty of that. And I'm really trying to do better at it. And thinking about how can I take care of others and even do what it is that he's called me to do. If my body is falling apart, you can't do it.
You can't.
It's impossible. And you did an excellent job. I see in a lot of your writings in your link for your blog and everything, you want to teach taking care of mind, body, spirit.
Mind, body,
the total
spirit.
You.
The total you.
I see it repeatedly.
Yes.
I've read it repeatedly in your things.
And that's what I want people to get. That's the vision of the ministry. We give you inspiration and information to help you prosper in every area of your life. Body, mind, and spirit. Wholeness. So if people ask us, it's wholeness. That's what Gospel Talk is all about. Because you can get inspiration, but we also want you to get the thing that's going to help regulate your mind.
That's important.
That's important. That's important because when you talk about losing your mind, I have a friend now that is dealing with that.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
You can't do anything. It shuts down everything because everything begins there. And that's why it's so important for us to renew it with the word of God and keep ourselves in a place of focusing on that. But at the same time, if the body is not in a place that it is healthy, you can't do anything.
Right.
So you're stuck. Or if the mind is not healthy, even if the body's healthy, you can't do anything.
You can't do anything.
So it's important.
It's important. Well, because I think about the woman with the issue of blood. Jesus just could have healed her. But he said, I made you whole. Go. Wholeness. Why was it so important? Because imagine what her mind, 12 years of dealing with something.
I did 8.
It affects your mind.
Yes, it does. I began to wonder at the age of 29 or 30, was I ever going to live a whole, well life again?
Right.
Because that disease had affected every aspect of my life because of the way it affected my body. So, of course, subsequently, I began to wonder. I was so violently ill so often.
Yeah.
Until I couldn't function normally through his grace, I was able to push through and do what I could. But yes.
And that's what transformation is all about. It is giving women the tools, the resources. So, and let them know, we want you to be whole. God wants you to be whole. Okay. And you can be that in that corporate woman, or you can be that housewife, but we still want you to be whole.
And you gave a lot of naked and unashamed examples of women that were providing the information that overcame.
Yes.
Overcame divorce, overcame financial calamity,
yes.
overcame, and you were giving the tools, and you were looking at a living example of someone that made it through terrible situations in the Lord.
Because I believe, and if people know me, I'm very transparent. I don't mind sharing what God has brought me out of.
That's what
right?
you're supposed to do.
Okay. Because somebody is looking at me and saying, oh, wow, she's done a lot. Baby, you don't know my story. You don't know the things that I've had to deal with, the things that I thought I was going to lose my mind over.
That's right.
But God kept me. The grace of God kept me.
That's right. And we need to know that.
Yes.
Because I got a divorce from my high school sweetheart. And I was single for 20 years. We were married 11. But that was hard. And nobody kept me during that time because I was still dealing with my illness. And if someone had told me that I would have had to deal with that and make it through, because a divorce is like a death.
It is.
Because he was a good person and we were young. When I look back, we didn't deal with the things that came at us correctly. And I think because we both were good people, Satan knew that he needed to kill and destroy that. And we allowed it.
And that's one of the things that I haven't done it in a while, but we do navigating through difficult times. That's my couples ministry that I do, because we want people to know your spouse is not your enemy.
That's right.
Your spouse is not your enemy. It is hard to stick and stay sometimes. It's hard to forgive. It's hard to move forward, but it's doable.
It is. It's very much so doable.
It's doable.
And we, from the day, and I should have known, but I didn't have the maturity spiritually or just naturally. We were very young, right out of college. I should have known from day one we were being attacked. Day one. Looking back, and we weathered through a lot of it just because of the people that we were. But it eventually caused the demise. Yeah.
And that's another thing that I like about the book, because even though you had that experience, God still used you.
Absolutely.
He still knew what was inside of you.
He knew what he put in me. He knew I would have that experience. Yes. He knew it all.
He knew it all.
I had to understand, by spending time with him, spending time in his word, that it did not disqualify me from being his child.
That's the word.
And you exemplify that extremely well, even just in the first chapter. Talking, and the second one too. You talked about in the first chapter how he told her she had 5 husbands.
Yeah.
And then you talked about how she was alienated as to why she was at the well at noontime. Because the women from her village, so to speak, came early in the morning. But because she had 5 husbands, she was looked down upon. So she'd rather come in the heat of the day to draw her water than feel as an outcast with people that she should have been accepted by.
Right.
Because if they weren't guilty of whatever she was guilty of, they were guilty of something.
Right.
So you're not in the position to judge anyone. If you're not guilty of the same thing, you're guilty of something. You're guilty of judging and ostracizing, just to say the least.
Just to say the least.
It was so, and I never really felt that or dealt with that in my life after my divorce, even though it was something that wasn't really prevalent in my family. I'm from a small town, even smaller than Valdosta.
Oh, wow.
So I had a problem with people when I would go home asking me about him, and you knew they were being facetious, and I
Mhm.
was still in a place of hurt. And
Mhm.
believe it or not, older people, like from my home church, people can be so cruel, but I was able to deal with it and work through it. And it just made me stronger.
Mhm. It does.
Mhm.
And it will. All of that, when the scripture talks about all things are working together for your good, all of that has helped make Shelby who she is now.
Today.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Transformed.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You're right.
Strong.
You're right.
Warrior.
That's right. Had to
Graceful.
be.
Mhm.
Praise him.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
All of that has made you, and that's another thing that I want to get across to women. We have went through some things. You may still go through some things, but that does not discredit you from being used by God.
Look at the disciples. They were all so imperfect. And I
Hmm.
think he did that on purpose, and he did it over and over and again
Yes.
throughout the Bible, even with stories like this.
Yes.
He didn't go pick what people would say was the creme de la creme of
Yes.
society.
Yes. Yes.
And if we knew the stories of a lot of our even religious leaders today,
Hmm. That's why I don't. I'm very, very transparent with people because I want people to know God is able to do
mhm,
so much more with our lives if we surrender,
that's
if we submit, and we allow Him to transform us.
that's right.
People often ask me about the transformation, where they get the name from. I did not make that name up. I woke up one morning and it just Transformation Women's Conference. I
Mhm,
said, okay, God.
mhm. When he downloads it like that and you're
Yes.
obedient, even when you have to go through the process of whatever it is you have
Yeah.
to go through,
Hmm.
it's going to be what it is he ordained it to be.
Yes, it will.
And that is success.
Yes, it.
That is success
Yes.
because what I experienced um, last month in Valdosta at the conference was transformative. It was enlightening, enriching. It touched healing for my mind, body, spirit. You accomplished just what he told you to accomplish. And that's what happens when you're obedient.
Yes, that is. That is. Um, I always like to share this about the Transformation Women's Conference. I um, always like to have two nights. The first night, prayer,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it gets us ready for what the word and the inspiration that's
To
coming the next
receive.
day
Mm-hmm.
gets us ready to receive. But I want to share um, how I end up going to Valdosta with the Transformation Conference. How much time again? Okay.
We could.
So I did several conferences here, and I was planning to do the in 2019. I was planning another one here, but it was like God was saying no, and I've learned to be sensitive to the Holy Spirit.
Obedient.
He was saying no, no, and I said okay, and I said, what about Valdosta? I was actually in the shower. I remember
Mm-hmm.
these moments.
Mm-hmm.
Valdosta. I said, oh, okay, yeah. So we started working on this, and I only was able to do that Saturday. I said, "Oh man, I want to do a Friday night prayer. I want to do a Friday night prayer." We had some things laid out, but it didn't come through.
Mm-hmm.
So the lady that spoke, Apostle Berry, the
Mm-hmm.
church that we went to that Friday night,
Right.
she spoke at the
She's powerful.
powerful,
Mm-hmm.
powerful woman of God. So she spoke at the first conference that I did in Valdosta, and so the Lord said, "You need to go visit her because she doesn't know you." So I called on the phone. I'm talking to her. I said, I want to make a trip. I said, my husband and I, we want to come. We want to treat you to lunch after we enjoy your service. Okay. And we had this wonderful conversation. I felt connected to her from the
You
first
were.
conversation. I felt connected to her. this is the thing. I'm sitting in her parking lot, and I happen to look to the left, and I see Hampton Inn.
Mm-hmm.
And then I look, I said, that's the conference center right there.
Right.
I said, oh my gosh, it's literally 5 minutes
It's across
away.
the street.
Okay.
It's across the street.
I said, oh my gosh, it is literally 5 minutes away. So after we had lunch with her and everything, the next morning I was praying and the Lord said, ask her. So I called and asked her. I said, this is my vision.
Mm-hmm.
I told her my vision, and I said, could I possibly have the prayer night at your church?
Mm-hmm.
Without any hesitation.
Absolutely.
Without any, I said, God, this is you.
It is.
I said, this is you. I couldn't have dreamed it.
He opened the door.
He opened the door.
Mm-hmm.
And as you saw on last month, the place was full.
Yes, it was extremely full. And we were in a conference center, not a fellowship hall.
Yeah.
We were in a conference center, like a conference center that they connect hotels to.
Yeah.
And it was full. Everything was nice. And she performed ministry in there. And she fed our spirit. And she gave us education about our finances and how to plan for the future with a financial planner, because all of that is a part of making a healthy, whole woman.
Yes.
We carry more responsibility now than ever before in the history of the world. There are a lot of women that are head of households.
Yes.
They're CEOs. Even if they're married, I think we still carry more responsibility than the traditional woman. So we have to have the education. We have to have the knowledge. We have to be able to hold ourselves in a position of wholeness in every way. We're not having to depend on our husbands to totally provide for us anymore. We are truly a helpmate in current day in ways that we didn't have the opportunities to be in the past. And some women, many households now out-earn their husbands.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that they're not in a position of submission as the word tells us to be.
Yeah.
But you even have to learn how to navigate that in a way to keep a peaceful home.
Yes, you do.
And that comes with humility and submission to the word. So even if you out-earn your husband, you have the tools through things like the Transformation Conference.
Yes.
First supping with God to be able to navigate that.
Yes.
I have been thrown in situations, even with caregiving for my mom for 7 years, with all of the responsibilities that I had, even the responsibilities I had here. But he showed me how to navigate all of them. Because if I had sat down and written out in a list all of the responsibilities that I was juggling, it would have been overwhelming.
Yeah, yeah. You read all of that, and I was thinking, have I done all that?
All of it.
Have I done all of that?
All of it.
You know, and I call my partners, we call each other dream pushers.
That's awesome.
Purpose pushers, excuse me.
I like that.
Purpose pushers.
I like that.
Because I have women who see it's something more in me. And this is what you want to be around. You want to be around women who see, oh no, you can do that. Let's go for it.
That's right.
You know, I have my partner, Pastor Tawana Grant and Elder Victoria Emanuel. They support me 100%.
And that's awesome. And
100%.
you need it.
You need it. Now, if it's too crazy, because sometimes I go way to the left, they have to bring me back in.
Well, you need that too.
You got to have that accountability.
But you're smart enough to have that and listen.
And listen. My Pastor Tawana, I call her for everything. What you think about this? Because she's a woman of wisdom. She's high on the corporate ladder, but a spiritual giant. And so I go to her.
And you recognize that.
And I recognize, okay? I recognize that she's not going to tell me. And there is no competition.
Thank God.
No competition.
That's a snake with about 12 heads.
Ooh.
I'm reading a book again now by Nona Jones called Killing Comparisons. And she is high up in Meta, Facebook.
Yeah.
And she's a first lady of a church in Gainesville, Florida, or one of the Floridas. I want to say Gainesville, Florida. But she's very well known That book shows all of the little tentacles of how competition rears its head, other than the obvious ways. You know what it made me think of? The foundation that Fervent laid for us, that Priscilla Shire book,
Yes.
of all of the strategies of how Satan uses us against ourselves, and how it comes for our passion, our children, our
Oh my goodness.
how the things that we turn into idols, whether it's education or job or
Mhm.
our homes, or how we let our past, our insecurities hold us back.
Mhm.
All the things that are used against us to keep us from fulfilling our purpose.
Yes.
So you need purpose pushers.
You do.
And you need those ones that are truly in love with you.
Yes.
In love with you, to see you in all of your flaws,
Oh my
but they
goodness.
still are able to see the purpose in which God has placed you here, and able to deal with you at your worst
Ooh.
and your best,
Yes.
and still be in love with you,
Yes.
and push you to your purpose unapologetically. And you have to be in love with them.
Yes.
Because you have to listen to what they have to say. A lot of times when you don't want to hear it,
Yes.
but you honor it
I do.
because you know that they mean you well.
Well, you know this. So when she said, I think we might need to wait on that. Okay.
That's right.
Because I
And
know
you know
she's
there's
the
no
pusher.
motive.
Right. You know it's no motive.
She's not
Absolutely.
trying to sabotage you.
No.
She's not trying to. Is her wisdom in that time, in that area. And we can't know all things, see all things, do all things.
That's why
and
we have to connect.
You can't do anything great alone.
No, you cannot. You cannot accomplish anything great alone. Wow. We have been talking. We could go on all night.
All night. But we're not going to.
Yeah. But I want to encourage you.
Please
Please go to the website. Go to the website, gospeltalkeat.com. Click on the tab that says current book, and you're going to see a picture of the book come up. Please click on the link. It takes you to Amazon, and you can purchase the ebook, which I have, and I've greatly enjoyed. It's convenient. Yes. Get both. Get the paperback, because they both have different uses. Yes. And then is your other book on your Yes, it is. On that same link, it'll take you to Amazon. It takes you to the author page. And Perfect. The author page has Coming Out of the Wilderness and Becoming What You're Carrying. And is there any other information you want them to have? Because I'm going to ask you this really quick and let you expound upon it. I remember going to a Gospel Talk event with Pastor and First Lady years ago. I guess around 2012, the Wardler brothers were there. Was that one of your events, or how was that connected with you? That was not one of my events. Okay. I went there to take pictures. Gotcha. I had the photographer at the time. Your magazine covered it. Yeah, my magazine covered it. My magazine covered it. Yes, gotcha. Now I understand. It just clicked in my mind. It makes sense, because I wasn't quite clear, because I knew you had invited them and they invited me. And but it was an awesome event. And I remember seeing it in your magazine, because you used to have copies in the church office. But I want to congratulate you on all that you've done. Now, the Gospel Talk website contains everything that I've talked about tonight, right? It houses your link for them to be able to get to the blog information, the vlog information, the conference, and everything. This is a multifaceted woman of God. Please go to the Gospel Talk website. Give us the whole website. Okay, it's gospeltalkinc.com. Gospel Talk Inc. Inc.com. You can contact her there for speaking engagements. Yes. She's a newly licensed minister, even though that did not make her capable of doing speaking engagement. It just added to her. She is a certified life coach. She has the magazine, as I said, the blog, the vlog. She has this wonderful conference that, are you doing it yearly? I am doing it yearly. Okay. I'm in the process of planning for 2025. Oh, one thing I almost forgot. I do a cruise every other year. Okay. So I have a cruise coming up next year. We call it Transforming Families, because we really want to invite families to come. We did one last year, and we did MSC. That's our first time traveling on MSC, and they had a bowling alley in there. Fun. Everybody enjoyed it. We also did a night of couples. We laughed, played games, all of that. It was fun. We went to the beach. it was fun. So next year we're going on Carnival. It is a 6-day cruise. Going to Nassau. It's also going to Grand Turk and another place I can't even think about it right now, but it is 3 stops. We're leaving out of Port Canaveral. You can also find that information on the website.
I was about to ask you that. What's the information about the cruise on the
Yes,
website?
you can find it on
So
the website.
she's organized, and the website site is very easy to navigate.
Very easy to navigate.
And it's very informational about all that she's doing. And it is a lot, but it's in order. It's not chaotic, and it's not all over the place. So it'll be very easy for you to navigate and understand. Again, go buy Amazon. This book will be a blessing to you.
Yes.
The concepts are, her target audience are women, but the concepts, as the other books that I have talked about tonight, are concepts that are universal.
Yes.
So men, if you don't have something that gives you this type of information and that is universal, pick it up, give it as gifts. It will bless whomever reads it. These concepts are not concepts that Satan just uses against women.
Yes.
He uses it against the human race. So these are things your teenage girls, equip them. Let them know what they're growing into as adults and the things that they're struggling with now, where they are right now.
Yes.
It's written at a place that a 14-year-old can understand. I don't know what grade level you wrote it on, but it's very plain and to the point. And she is so candid and unashamed about comparing and giving life situation and parallels in each chapter, which I love. It gives you the ability to connect with the author. Again, thank you so much for coming by Safe Space, giving us and blessing us with your stories, your time, and sharing with the world all that you are doing. I know that this is going to be a blessing, and the other things that you're offering and doing are blessings each and every day.
To God be the glory.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you are being obedient and walking in his purpose. And thanks to you and your purpose pushers for being obedient.
Yes.
Thank you all so much again for coming by Safe Space. If you, for some reason, don't go to gospeltalkinc.com, you can reach her through me. You can go to Safe Space. The website is hope@safespace.com. I am on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook under Safe Space with Shelby Arrington. Again, you all, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for coming by Safe Space. Good night. And you all have a wonderful evening. Be blessed.
Good night.